What is up, guys? We are here with our last preview of week one. We previewed so many games this week, so check them out if the games haven't happened. Dropped our Ohio State preview last night. We also are going to have a Virginia Tech UNC recap tonight as well, so stay tuned for that. But go check out all our previews. Our guy B-Dub's back, safe from the hurricane, finally got his power back, and he texted me today and said, we're getting this preview out today. He said, the Wi-Fi's on, we're covering my team, so we got the LSU Tigers, number 16 ranked in the country, traveling out to LA against the UCLA Bruins in a huge non-conference matchup, 6:30 p.m. Central Time, live on Fox tomorrow. So all of y'all should be tuned in to Fox tomorrow to see this game. You know, you get your basic cable, get an antenna if you don't have one. Got to check this game out. But, you know, Brandon, there's a lot of storylines that we could talk about. One being LSU coming off a historically bad defensive season, a 5-5 record. And then also on the flip side, you have UCLA getting their first non-conference win under Chip Kelly against Hawaii, where they just dominated 44-10. And now they're looking to pull off a huge upset against a ranked SEC team, which they might extend Chip Kelly at this point, Brandon. He went from being on one of the hottest seats a year or two ago to now he's one of the better coaches in the Pac-12. And then we also have, Brandon, Derek Stingley's healthy return. What is he going to be like? And then the amazing QB battle between Max Johnson and Dorian Thompson-Robinson. So which storyline are you focused on, and kind of what are your initial, what things are you looking for coming into this game?
So the main thing I'm looking forward to, Zach, or the main thing I guess I'm focusing on going into this game is just last year as a whole for both of these teams. You know, LSU went 5-5, obviously disappointed. UCLA 3-4. You know, we talked about them already, Zach, and those 4 losses, none of them were by more than 6 points. So, like, this team, I think, is ready. Another storyline I like to kind of point at here is that we're looking at like 2 teams that are kind of the opposite side of the spectrum, like experience-wise. Looking at such a young LSU team versus this UCLA team that is made up majority of like seniors, some super seniors even. They're returning 20 starters from last year, Zach. So like they have all the experience in the world versus some LSU guys, like some LSU players who have never played a snap of college football in their life. I mean, we're talking about like if Mason Smith ends up playing some snaps. I guess we're dropping this today, so tomorrow. He's never played in college. I mean, some other guys are there as well. I'm not going to sit here and name them, but it's super exciting to me to see like the levels of experience these guys have and the differences in that, and just like the levels of play that both of these teams play at. I think they play at super high levels, both of them. It's going to be a super fun game to watch. I mean, obviously the line is 2.5, so how could it not? Everybody's expecting this game to be somewhat close. So yeah, man. I mean, those are the 2 main things. Just coming off of last season, how can both these teams look to improve? And I guess the experience level of each team.
Absolutely. So we got to break down how these teams, what are the keys for each team. We'll start with LSU, who's a 2.5-point favorite. Brandon, for me, I'm probably going to have like a weird take because, everyone just says you've got to run the ball. I think it's the opposite in this matchup. I think the key is this offensive line who returns 4 or 5 starters from last year has to protect Max Johnson, and you have to get the ball into your best playmakers' hands, and the best playmakers for LSU are on the outside at wide receiver. It has to start with that. The question marks coming into the season for UCLA started in the secondary. If LSU can't take advantage of that, Brandon, they're going to have a long day. And also this offensive line, even though they return a lot of starters, there were times in fall camp and in spring practice where Coach Ed Orgeron was a little bit critical of this O-line. And so this is a great matchup. We saw last week, Brandon, if UCLA does anything that they did last week, they have to rush the passer. They were getting to Corderio, play in and play out, coming out with unique blitzes. I love their defensive scheme. They were multiple in what they showed. They brought different blitzes. They showed different fronts. If they can confuse this LSU offensive line and Max Johnson's running for his life, it's going to be a long day for LSU. So for me, as much as the run game's always important, it's for Max Johnson to get the ball out to Kayshon Boutte and that I would say LSU's probably 5 deep at wide receiver where any one of them could explode for a big game. If you can't get it to your athletes on the outside and take advantage of some question marks in the secondary for UCLA, I just don't see how LSU is going to be able to establish a great game plan coming into this game and come out with the win on the road if they can't get the ball to their best players.
I think you're right, Zach. I mean, the O-line for LSU is obviously the biggest question mark on this team, I think. I don't think I think they're a little bit undersized. I don't think they have like a true left tackle on this team ever since Dare Rosenthal transferred to Kentucky. So they're working with that. But my main key for LSU, I think, is going to have to be their front seven and how they react to this UCLA run game, because UCLA's run game is just so dangerous, dude. Like that's like the key to their offense, because Dorian Thompson-Robinson, while he is super athletic, he is a very good quarterback. He has kind of shown us last week against Hawaii that the passing game is still like there's still something to be desired there, but he can get it done on his feet as well. The running backs, dude. I mean, it's insane for UCLA. So this LSU front seven really has to step up. This defensive line, especially, I think, needs to step up and play a lot better than they did last season.
Absolutely. And so I'll just bounce off of you and we'll get right into our next segment, which is the keys for UCLA. Establish the run. The complete opposite of LSU. If Zach Charbonnet and Brenton Brown, for me, Brandon, don't have 15 carries apiece, UCLA lost this game. I'm just being completely honest. When you look at the front seven for LSU, they are very, very strong. They got some great guys on the interior, some great edge rushers. I love Ojulari off the edge. I think Ojulari could be someone to watch this game in terms of rushing the passer. But for me, Zach Charbonnet, Britton Brown have to move the ball. You look at Charbonnet, Brandon, last week, 6 carries, 3 touchdowns, over 100 yards. And Britton Brown had almost 80 on 13 carries. You have to give the ball to your running backs, and you have to have your offensive line create some holes. Now, I know LSU brought in Mike Jones Jr., but I still think his specialty is pass coverage. How is he going to hold up in the run game this week? I think this is a great test to see how LSU's linebackers are going to fare against a strong running attack, which they're going to see later in the year. Isaiah Spiller's coming. Brian Robinson is coming. Tank Bigsby is coming. This week, LSU's linebackers are going to be tested, Brandon. But the key for UCLA, run the football, because we saw last week when Dorian Thompson-Robinson had to make some throws, he really didn't. He only had 50% completion percentage, missed some big passes. Justin Fry, the offensive coordinator for UCLA, if you're listening by chance, give the ball to Zach Charbonnet and Britton Brown, because those two guys are going to be your workhorses. And if you're going to beat a talented team like LSU, Brandon, you have to run the ball, because what you don't want to happen is your run gets shut down, and then you're going to be forced to throw against Mike Jones Jr., Derek Stingley, Elias Ricks, the 4 safeties that probably could start anywhere else in America for LSU. If you get forced into being one-dimensional, LSU's defense and secondary is going to have an absolute field day. It's going to allow the strength of their team, which are edge rushers on the front seven, to pin their ears back, and Dorian Thompson-Robinson cannot have that happen. Brandon, if UCLA, if we do this recap, so this game Saturday, we'll do the recap Sunday or Monday. If UCLA doesn't have 150, I'm saying 150 to 200 yards rushing, they lost this game, if that's what you're telling me. I think that's how efficient they need to be able to run the ball.
You're right, and I 100% agree with you. I'm not even going to go with anything different here. They have to establish that run. You know, I'll kind of flip a switch here, actually. I take it back. I want to see Dorian Thompson-Robinson improve in the passing game. I want to see – he's deadly accurate. That's the thing. Like, he can get the ball to these receivers. He has to make better reads. He has to know the passes that he can make and commit to those. He can't try to push himself a little bit too far. Stay with what you feel safe with. Don't try to push yourself especially against this LSU secondary. I think if he can establish that short passing game, UCLA, I mean, I don't see it out of the realm of possibility that UCLA wins this game if they can establish that passing game along with the rushing game. I think that they already have, you know.
And also, just like a little keynote, I know Dorian Thompson-Robinson is a throw-first type of guy. If he gets pressure, I want to see how he can be dynamic with his legs. If he can get out of the pocket and still make plays, that'll be good, because it could take an extra defender to, and make them a spy, which takes somebody out of coverage. If Dorian Thompson-Robinson can get out of the pocket and make some plays with his legs too, it'll go a long way for UCLA winning this game. But for me also, man, we got to get to the matchups to watch. And that's why I think the matchup to watch for me are these UCLA wide receivers against the LSU secondary. Somebody's got to go make a play, Brandon. I understand that, the UCLA wide receiving core showed a lot of promise last week at times, but if you can't get open and help out your quarterback at all, this is going to be a long game, because as much as they have to run the ball, Brandon, they also have to be able to not just let LSU load the box. So for me, Dorian Thompson-Robinson needs help on the outside. I think Greg Dulcich at tight end, Brandon, is going to be a big person to watch. Who does LSU put on him? He's a big body guy who was one of the top-rated tight ends last year. But Kyle Phillips at wide receiver is also someone I want to look at. Can he go out and make the plays he needs to against Elias Ricks, Derek Stingley, those safeties? The thing about the running game is once it's established, you've got to take a deep shot. If Dorian Thompson-Robinson and these wide receivers are losing to the secondary, LSU is going to load the box, and then it's going to be a blowout the other way. So I think they're going to be able to run the ball. That's why the matchup to watch for me is these underrated wide receivers for UCLA against this LSU secondary that might be one of the best in the country this year.
Yeah, and I've already mentioned UCLA's rush game against this LSU front seven. So I'll move away from that a little bit. And I'm going to look at the battle in the trenches, Zach. I think both of these O-lines are a little bit loose. What I noticed from the Hawaii game against UCLA is that anytime that Hawaii would blitz against UCLA, they could get pressure on Dorian Thompson-Robinson. I also noticed that anytime that it seemed like it seems like LSU's O-line is kind of – I'm sorry, I'm kind of struggling here. We just got power back, guys. I'm sorry. I'm here, though. It seems like LSU's O-line, like I mentioned earlier, is a little bit undersized. They have a lot to work toward. This is the same group that won the best offensive line of the country in 2019. It's a lot of the same guys. Obviously, they lost Lloyd Cushenberry and Damian Lewis. But other than that, they still have Austin Deculus on the squad. A lot of the same guys there. They were on the team at least. And it's so weird to me to see like this team take such like a step back. But as long as this O-line can stay strong, as long as they can hold up against this UCLA pass rush that looked fairly strong against Hawaii, then I think things will be okay. One thing I will say is that UCLA's pass rush, they could really only get pressure on Hawaii's quarterback when they blitzed. If they only sent like 4 guys at a time, Hawaii had time to get the ball off. And LSU has that weakness on O-line, so I think that's going to be a super key matchup to watch on both sides of the ball.
I like it. And so, official prediction time, Brandon. Who are you taking by how much, and how do you see this game playing out?
Okay, so I think this game is remotely close. I think it's super close in the first half. I could even see UCLA going to halftime up, but I have to go with my Tigers. I'm going to go with LSU winning this game 31-21.
Oh, 31-21. I like it. I think it's going to be a little bit closer, Brandon. With a 2.5-point spread, it's so hard not to predict that line, not to LSU winning by more than that if you pick them is hard. I have it super close, Brandon. I think the offense, I think UCLA is going to come out aggressive. I understand, the fan. I want to know what the environment is going to be like, honestly. UCLA always gets so much flack for not bringing out to the stadium, especially last week. I hope they pack it out for LSU. And if not, LSU's fans are definitely going to travel to LA. And so it's going to be an interesting environment. For me, I think Dorian Thompson-Robinson can make some plays with his legs early, but down the stretch, I just feel like this LSU's defense is too deep to break down, and I don't think the same depth is reciprocated on UCLA's side. I have LSU winning a close one, pulling away in the second half. I have LSU. Let's see. Oh, I don't know if I want to go with that score or not. Man, it's so tough because I'm like jumping back and forth between what I think. I got it 35-31 LSU over UCLA this weekend. I think that's about what it was. I almost jumped up into the 40s, and I was like, I just don't know if week 1 LSU's offense is ready for that, especially with the O-line questions. 35-31 LSU for me. Guys, comment your predictions below. Also, make sure to subscribe. We got college football content daily, and I mean daily. Like, we got episodes on the weekend now and everything like that. So daily college football content, highest quality. Make sure to hit subscribe. hit the like button on this video, man. Share it with everybody. But for me, myself and B-Dub, man, we'll be back very soon with some recaps. But for right now, we are out.